Honourable Member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Mr. Speaker, and it's a pleasure to see you in the chair today. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate having the chance to stand in the House today to speak to Bill C-49. I'd like to mention that as I deliver my comments, I do so on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the fact that the other side likes to downplay and ignore climate change. As a Member of Parliament from British Columbia, I can tell you that my constituents have faced some of the worst impacts of fires and floods which have been exacerbated by climate change. From winter storms taking down power lines in Quebec to storms battering our coasts, the fact is that the climate crisis is a serious issue that requires serious responses. Today we're here to talk about a plan to expand job-creating climate action in Atlantic Canada, which is certainly a region that has seen no shortage of climate impacts. Take Nova Scotia. As a province, Nova Scotia's workers and their families have been through not one, not two, but three climate disasters in the last 13 months. 3. Hurricane Fiona, the wildfires in the Halifax Regional Municipality in Shelburne County, and flash flooding that tragically led to the deaths of 4 Nova Scotians, including 3 children. Mr. Speaker, it's time to stand behind the people of Nova Scotia and all of Atlantic Canada as we move forward with opportunities that will support the fight against climate change and benefit the region's long-term economic future. Mr. Speaker, developing the offshore renewable energy industry should be a priority for all members of Parliament, which is precisely why I'm here today as a Member of Parliament from British Columbia. Enabling the offshore renewables industry to move forward will not only help the people who live and work in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and Labrador, it will also help Canada as a whole in the effort to, and I'll have several items here, to help reduce emissions and meet emissions targets, to create a clean, reliable, and affordable grid, to create good-paying, sustainable jobs, to enhance Canada's ability to compete in the global low-carbon economy across all sectors, and also to further grow our economy today. Mr. Speaker, it's clear that Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and Labrador's workforces are ready to move forward with these offshore opportunities. The citizens of these provinces have the skills we need, and they bring generations of experience in a range of marine industries to the table. And like British Columbians, our East Coast colleagues are talented in other areas that are expected to benefit the offshore renewable energy industry, including shipbuilding, aquaculture, defense, research, and ocean technology. My Atlantic colleagues have been clear when they've spoken in this chamber. These provinces and the livelihoods of all who call it home have been shaped by the sea, providing rich maritime heritage and a passion for the environment, both of which make offshore wind and other renewable energy projects a natural fit for Nova Scotians and Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. Of course, Mr. Speaker, they also benefit from the geography and energy context that makes these projects so attractive. Nova Scotia's current energy mix means that affordable and reliable offshore wind power will support lowering prices for ratepayers. And as Newfoundland and Labrador uses its hydro capacity to support the electrification of buildings, industry, and transportation, more and more power will be needed in the future. This is true across the country, yet the offshore potential of Atlantic Canada is one of the greatest on Earth. Let me repeat that. The offshore potential of Atlantic Canada is one of the greatest on Earth. Unlocking this potential is a critical part of achieving our commitments to the global fight against climate change. While the other side likes to bury their heads in the sand and ignore the climate crises, as we see time and time again in this place, our side knows that ambitious action provides us with an opportunity to show the world that Canada is a reliable partner and leader in solving the great challenge of our era, and to do so in a manner that supports the creation of sustainable jobs. To ensure we honor our commitments to Canadians in the world, and to ensure our economy doesn't surrender opportunity to our competitors as the rest of the world races toward net zero, we need to move quickly. That urgency brings us to the business before us today, and our provincial counterparts agree that we must move quickly. Nova Scotia, for instance, has stated that coal-fired power plants are going to become a thing of the past by 2030, and that 80% of the province's power will, by then, come from clean energy. That's only 6 years away. Nova Scotia's progressive Conservative government and citizens are asking for this House to get this bill passed so they can start building the renewable energy they need. Atlantic Canadians in particular are calling on the Conservative Party to end their campaign of climate action obstruction and join us to pass this bill. Everyone is asking the Conservative Party to stop blocking jobs, investments, and renewable energy that will power their homes and businesses. The question is whether or not the leader of the Conservative Party will take his head out of the sand and heed this call. Make no mistake, Mr. Speaker, we will advance this legislation and deliver for Atlantic Canada either way. Doing so makes sense from both an environmental and economic perspective. The potential for job creation and environmental benefits in renewable energy is so strong in Nova Scotia that the provincial government has already made several significant moves towards making offshore renewable energy projects a reality in preparation of this bill's passing. Nova Scotia has joined the federal government in carrying out the regional assessment on offshore wind that's currently underway. Right now, the Regional Assessment Committee is hosting public houses to provide information on the process itself and get feedback on potential project locations. Nova Scotia also released the first module of their offshore wind roadmap in June, which clearly delineates their vision for offshore wind energy and the regulatory pathway and timelines for project development. The roadmap provides certainty for businesses looking to invest, as well as giving a line of sight on what's coming for stakeholders, Indigenous groups, and other interested parties. The roadmap also outlines the seabed leasing opportunities, noting that access to seabed rights that are solely under the province's jurisdiction could be available for commercial projects as early as next year. But for this to happen, Bill C-49 needs to pass quickly through this chamber. I again encourage my Conservative colleagues to listen to the people of Atlantic Canada, as well as both the Liberal Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador and the Progressive Conservative Premier of Nova Scotia. I encourage them to reverse their thoughtless and ideological position, vote in favour of this common sense bill. C-49 affords this House the opportunity to deliver good, sustainable jobs, good renewable energy projects, and major economic opportunities for all while combating climate change. Mr. Speaker, the two boards, the CNL-OPB and the CNS-OPB, which has held the province's offshore energy industry accountable for many years, is the natural choice to take on an expanded mandate for the regulation of the province's offshore energy projects. It's a perfect fit. The Offshore Board already ensures that licensed project operators adhere to offshore regulations. It engages and consults with stakeholders, Indigenous groups, and the public to get feedback on potential and existing projects. They have years of experience in offshore safety and environmental protection, and they hold operators to account through the Board's comprehensive compliance and enforcement activities. The boards are also an excellent collaborator. It's put several agreements and memoranda of understanding in place with other organizations and agencies to make it easier for them to share information, expertise, and resources with each other and coordinate their initiatives. This includes agreements with the Canadian Coast Guard, Transport Canada, the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada, Employment and Social Development Canada, Environment and Climate Change Canada, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, the Canada Energy Regulator, Natural Resources Canada, the Transportation Safety Board, and more. With these many agreements already in place, the offshore boards are a clear and logical choice for overseeing the development of offshore wind projects, as well as other renewable energy projects off the shores of Nova Scotia. Mr. Speaker, economically, this bill makes good financial sense. We've heard that it's expected that as much as $1 trillion will be invested in offshore wind globally by 2040. That investment is already starting to flow to offshore markets around the world. This is why it's so urgent that the Conservatives end their opposition to these jobs and investments, so all members of Parliament can come together to get Bill C-49 passed. We need to seize this massive economic opportunity, not just for Atlantic Canada, but for all of Canada. This bill is key to ensuring our country is a leader in the global race to net zero. All members of all parties of all regions should not delay this bill any further, or else we'll throw away the opportunity to attract investment, the opportunity to build a world-class offshore wind industry, and the opportunity to create the thousands and thousands of jobs associated with it. Bill C-49 makes sense for Atlantic Canada's workforce and Canada more broadly. When Canada builds major new industries, Canadians from across the country contribute and benefit. The benefits of this economic activity help to spur waves of labour development, and that is critical to the economic well-being of Canada as a whole, along with the restoration of many coastal communities in Newfoundland and Labrador and Nova Scotia. Mr. Speaker, this world needs Canadian clean energy and technologies in order to advance the fight against climate change and access long-term energy security. When Chancellor Schultz came to Newfoundland and Labrador last summer, He made it clear that Germany is looking to buy clean Canadian hydrogen made from offshore wind. From the EU, okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to take questions about C-49, a very important piece of legislation.
There you go. Question.